folks. I've got you guys an update on the tropics. All right, so we have a new tropical wave emerging off the coast of Africa that has now a high chance of developing throughout the next 7 days. All right, we have to talk about how this could be a significant threat to land and how this could end up being Hurricane Ernesto. I've got all the details coming right up. All right, so thank you for joining me here on this Friday night. We have a lot to talk about in this video as we're going to go over all the information we just got from the National Hurricane Center and from the models overnight and what we got today. All right, I've been so busy with Debbie that I've not really done any updates on this tropical wave, but this has really grown fast, and this just started as like a 30% chance of development and just got higher and higher, and it's all the way up to a 70% chance of development now. But this is it here. It's got a little spin to it, nothing really crazy, but you do have a little bit of minor convection going on there. It's not going to develop for the next 48 hours or anything. It's going to take some time. But to start out with the big picture, what we've got now is still this huge pocket of swirling dust that's just kind of sitting over sections of the Central Atlantic, over parts of the Greater and Lesser Antilles. All right, this is all going to be kind of moving its way to the west. All right, so hopefully what's going to happen is that this tropical wave is going to interact with this dust a little bit, and that could somewhat weaken the storm. We're really going to have to figure that out. I doubt that's going to happen, but this is starting to pick up speed, and it's starting to move itself a little bit farther to the west. So what you've got in the environment that the storm is entering right now is you've got some really moist conditions. You've probably got some really warm sea surface temperatures out here, so pretty favorable conditions for intensification with the storm. All right, but we're going to have to go over what's going to happen to it as it gets closer to like the Lesser Antilles and even the Greater Antilles. That's what we don't know yet, and that's what we need to figure out. All right, so we're going to look out now the National Hurricane Center's outlook. All right, this is their 7:30 outlook. So as of right now, you can see what we've got is starting out here. We got post-tropical cyclone Debbie. All right, no longer a tropical depression with just wind speeds of 35 miles per hour, minimum central pressure around 999 millibars. All right, that's just going to move its way out of the northeast by tomorrow. But this is our wave that we have to talk about. All right, this is it right here. As you can see, this is already at a high 70% chance of development throughout the next 7 days. What they're saying is that shower activity associated with a tropical wave located about 900 miles west-southwest of the Cabo Verde Islands has become a little better organized since yesterday. Slow development of the system is possible during the next couple of days, while it moves westwards and west-northwestward across the central tropical Atlantic. Conditions are expected to become more conducive for development thereafter. A tropical depression is likely to form by early next week while the system approaches and then moves near or over the Lesser Antilles. So they're saying that a tropical depression is likely to form pretty much when it's on top of the Lesser Antilles or pretty much by the Lesser Antilles. All right, so that's pretty soon, but that's some pretty aggressive wording, I would say. The system is forecast to continue moving generally west-northwestward and could approach portions of the Greater Antilles by the middle part of next week. So their area of interest shaded in here goes pretty much all the way from where your X is, kind of through the northern sections of the Lesser Antilles. They've got the Greater Antilles up here, Hispaniola, and then you've also got sections of the Bahamas here, just the far eastern sections of the Bahamas, but it's a pretty big area. All right, it's a pretty big chunk of the Atlantic here that we have to talk about. But notice how it is going in the general direction of the United States, so that could definitely pose a risk to land. We have to talk about what the models are going to be showing for this, but I would say anybody along here needs to be watching this. All right, we need to be watching this closely because this is growing. The National Hurricane Center is closely eyeing this, and we've just seen more and more intensification with the forecast, if you want to put it that way. But we're going to move over here to the GFS model. We're going to take a look at model guidance to back us up and kind of look at what the models are saying for this storm. So as of right now, what the GFS is showing, this is the 18Z run. You got your low over here. It's 1,013 millibars by 8 p.m. today. All right, this is kind of, moving its way into sections of the southwestern Atlantic, kind of drifting over to the Lesser Antilles. By the time we get to the middle of the night, this is what is this? Monday into Tuesday. This is 2 in the morning on Tuesday. You have a 1,006 millibar low, most likely a tropical depression that is about to move into and impact sections of the northern Lesser Antilles. All right, this is pretty likely that this kind of scenario is going to happen, but we already have a tropical depression on our hands by the time we get to Tuesday. Now, Tuesday afternoon, we're going to see some intensification with the storm, and we get this done with 1,001 millibars. You could say this is most likely a tropical storm, could still be a tropical depression, but you're going to bed Tuesday, you're getting into Wednesday. And now this thing is really starting to strengthen. Just after it kind of moves through the Lesser Antilles, it's a 996 millibar low. So this is a strengthening and strong tropical storm moving towards the Greater Antilles and Hispaniola, producing some really intense rainfalls, probably some really strong wind gusts. This is a 981 millibar low and slams Hispaniola as a 988 millibar low. So this is probably a Category 1 hurricane, you could say. All right, by 2 in the morning on Thursday. And this continues to kind of strengthen over the southwestern Atlantic, moves north. And so now this is where we kind of run into a question mark. Where is the storm going to go after this? Well, you've got the Bahamas over here. This is scraping gently these islands in the southeastern portion of the Bahamas. This is a 976, probably a Category 2 millibar. Oh my gosh, what am I saying? This is a 976 millibar Category 2 hurricane, and it's moving through the southwestern Atlantic. Now, strong hurricanes rather gain latitude, so we're going to probably see this start to curve northward, and that's exactly what's happening, all right? We're going to see it stay weak, and then once it starts to strengthen, you can see it actually begins to turn northward. Now, obviously, everything depends on your pattern, but that's just the general trend with strengthening hurricanes and strong hurricanes, where most of them will want to gain latitude, and that's what we're seeing here. And this one kind of continues to move north. It's trying to go out to sea. You can see it kind of budge to go out to sea, and this is still strengthening because you have SSTs out here that are in the high 20s for your, if you have like 25 to 30 degrees Celsius SSTs out here, the storm's not gonna, it's not gonna have any trouble with development. So this is getting down to a 963 millibar low. This could honestly be a major hurricane at this point. All right, and this is by Sunday, so this is over a week out. So it's very hard to talk about this. It's gonna be hard to you can't forecast this. This is past the point where we can forecast this because we honestly don't really know exactly what's gonna happen at this point. But what the GFS is saying is that by Saturday night, we're gonna have a 963 millibar low, which is a major hurricane that's approaching the northeast. All right, and this is not me saying that we're gonna get a landfall in the northeast. This is just me saying it's getting closer. And what we see is that this storm continues to strengthen. It's now down to a 956 millibar low. So this is surely a Category 3 hurricane as we get into the weekend. And then now we're getting to Monday. And this is Monday to Tuesday. Look how strong this storm is. And you're noticing, like, what's going on here? This is racing for southern New England. All right. But you can notice that there is a little trough that's starting to dig down into the eastern United States. Now, what we need to figure out, and we need to look at more model guidance to back us up, but if this trough is actually going to play out and it's going to kind of interact with the storm at all, we need to figure out the timing of this trough, if it's going to be earlier or later, if it's going to be on time to the point where it can throw this thing out to sea, or is it going to be too early, too late, I should say, and not get there in time and allow this to potentially make a move to make a landfall. We have to figure that out. But this is not going to scare this is not aimed to scare anybody. This is not aimed to put anybody in a panic or anything. But what the GFS shows is that we get a 966 millibar low, still probably a Category 3 hurricane, that barely scrapes the coast of New England. This probably impacts like the Cape Cod area. It's now a 970 millibar low. This is so close to a major landfall out here, but it barely misses southern New England out here. All right, and this is by the 20th. This is Tuesday, so this is so far out, guys. This is over a week out. Really, a lot of stuff that can change here. But if you look at the 12Z, all the runs from today, you can all see that they all show a potential hurricane, either getting close or even moving on to the eastern coastline. All right, and it varies with these runs. It really varies where it's going to impact, and some of them don't even have this impacting any land. But the 18Z run for tonight does have this barely scraping the New England coastline before impacting Nova Scotia dead on as a 980 millibar low. So that's the GFS model run. That's its take on it. The GFS, the trend has been that it's going to kind of move through this area, and then, it's just that it's so far out that so many things could change, but it's been going kind of back and forth, teetering between landfall on the East Coast or not on the East Coast, and sometimes it's been in between where it's kind of like barely scraped the East Coast or just been right offshore, like, really close to the East Coast. So that's kind of what the GFS is showing, but that's pretty alarming that you're getting strong hurricanes consistently on the GFS pretty close to land. So that's why the East Coast has to watch out for this, and I'm going to back up myself with more model guidance to show you guys why this is a real threat to land. So we move on to the European model. What does the European model show? Well, you take this out to the 13th, so this is into Tuesday. All right, we're getting Monday into Tuesday. We have 1,008 millibar low. Probably not a tropical depression at this point, so a lot weaker actually than the GFS was initially showing. But you have 1,008 millibar low that's kind of moving its way through the northern sections of the Lesser Antilles, portions of the Greater Antilles. All right, producing some showers and thunderstorms, and it takes a lot longer of a time to really develop, and it finally gets itself down to a 992 millibar low, which is probably just a really high end tropical storm. So you've got a strong tropical storm impacting pretty much the same exact area as the GFS was showing. So pretty good, pretty solid model agreement there, just that the GFS had it a little bit stronger. But they both take this through the Lesser and Greater Antilles, impacts Hispaniola, and then starts to strengthen as it moves north. Now, this is impacting the southeastern Bahamas as probably a Category 1 hurricane, and this is still strengthening, and this is getting down to a 977 millibar low as this is moving through the southwestern Atlantic by Saturday. So you're getting this weekend, next weekend, so this is going to be a week out from tomorrow. All right, you have a strengthening 977 millibar low, probably a Category 2 hurricane at this point, and this is starting to sweep into the Western Atlantic, and this is strengthening even deeper, and this is getting pretty much to the same kind of strength as what the GFS was showing. This is a 959 millibar low just off the coast of North Carolina, you could say. And once again, we have another major model showing a major hurricane just off the East Coast. Now, this is going to be a scare because the European model, this run, has it ending with a 963 millibar low just sitting off the New England coastline. So that's just another very concerning trend from the European model. Obviously, we've seen this trend continue. I mean, look at that. That's even stronger. You've got a 958 millibar low. All right, so the GFS and the European model are scaring us right now. That's what you can safely say. They're all showing at this point strong to major hurricanes, either impacting land or just very close to impacting land. That's what we can safely say from this. But you finally can look at the Canadian model. Now, the Canadian model, I would say, is not as reliable because it's been struggling a little bit with this storm, but it's definitely picking up on it as well. Take this much farther north than both the European and the GFS model. That's why it's been struggling. Gets us to a 994 millibar low, not impacting any land by the time we get this out to Wednesday afternoon. All right, and then this is strengthening and gets itself down to a hurricane. I mean, this is strengthening. This is probably just a Category 2 hurricane at this point, and kind of just moves through the Atlantic, not impacting anybody. That's a fish storm. All right, this is probably the best case scenario we've seen off the models. Probably the best case scenario that could happen is where we just get a hurricane that harmlessly kind of, moves throughout the Atlantic and it just ends up being a fish storm. That's obviously a possible scenario that could still happen, but it really seems unlikely at this point that the GFS and European model have consistently been on point with each other, and just with their runs in general. And then the Canadian model kind of just shows a mind of its own. It kind of sucks that the model with the mind of its own has to be the model showing the best case scenario. But that's pretty much what's going on with the storm. So, it still does get down to a hurricane, but it just doesn't seem to impact land. And I don't mean to always take the worst case scenario to scare you guys. I just think that the European model and the GFS already agreeing with each other kind of, tells me, like, gives me a feeling like, okay, those are the models that are going to be on point with this storm. So, we can look at the ensemble runs. This is from the GFS ensemble. You've got a lot of members in here bringing this through this region. I mean, you can see what I mean by on point. Usually, when you get the GFS model, it'll go crazy, but this is pretty tight, just considering that it's pretty far out on the GFS model, which GFS is pretty wacky with long distance tropical activity. But look at these members; these are really strong members, strong tracks. Bring this down to just a really strong hurricane, some of them being major hurricanes. Notice how a lot of them actually take this out to sea, which is interesting. So the ensembles take this out to the sea, but the regular GFS model that we look at actually brings this towards land, or at least closer to land. All right, some of these do actually bring this what appears to be a little bit closer to land, but none of them really seem to make a direct hit to land, which is the good news. And then you do have a few members that do take this out to the Gulf of Mexico. They never really curve northward, and there are a few members. It's not like there's only one, so that's obviously something to consider. I just doubt at this point that that's what's going to happen. But obviously, we don't know for sure if it's going to make that sharp turn north. We just have to wait and see. But I think that's definitely a possibility. But all of these members are just really, really strong. So that's pretty much just the concerning part of this run. So now you can look at the European ensemble. What the European ensemble is saying, it's very on point as well. Maybe even more on point than the GFS. Look at these strong members. It's picking up on a lot of lows here, a lot of different tracks on the spaghetti model. All right, you can see that all of these runs are just very, very strong. All right, a lot of these are major hurricanes. You can see we're getting down to the 960s, even the 950s. I think we have a 940 somewhere in here. So that's a strong major hurricane, all taking this just off the coast of the eastern United States. All right, none of them make a direct landfall, but you can see that they get dangerously close to the eastern United States. Pretty much all of them. There's a 943 millibar low. That's really scary. So very aggressive from the European ensemble just right out of the gate. But they all are pretty tight with each other, considering that this is over 200 hours out. But definitely a huge possibility for this to be a problem for people out here on the eastern United States. That's why people on the coastline really need to pay attention to this. But everybody is showing a strong to a potentially major hurricane with this storm, so it's pretty likely that this is going to be Ernesto. And it also seems like we have a genuine chance of this becoming Hurricane Ernesto. And I mean, it could definitely be a strong one. So I mean, that kind of just shows you how intense the tracks here on the European and GFS ensemble runs kind of show you the real possibility of this becoming a strong major hurricane. All right, so finally, we're going to take a look at the steering currents, or I guess the steering pattern for this storm. So we're going to look at the GFS and the European for this. So what's the GFS show? Well, here's your low. All right, starts to try and want to gain latitude. You can see we do have a trough that digs down from the northeast. That could also help bring it up. This could definitely be the reason why we're going to see this curve north. So that makes sense, because we can actually, I want to skip over to the European model to show you this. But yes, the European model does show this as well. A trough that digs down. Look at that. That is perfect model agreement that you've got there. That is very rare that you see like 150 hours out, perfect model agreement between the GFS and European model. You rarely see that, but that's the case with this. And so this trough kind of digs down, tries to pick up the storm, bring it farther north, and the storm's going to want to do that because this high pressure is way out to sea, so it's not going to bother this at all. So this is just going to be able to pick the storm up. The storm wants to gain latitude because it's gaining in strength, And what happens after that? Well, this area of high pressure closes in and kind of blocks Atlantic Canada, like Newfoundland, Nova Scotia, blocks all of those guys from getting hit by the storm. This is high pressure ridging, and then you've got a trough that's digging down in the eastern United States. That trough I mentioned earlier in the video, this is it. All right, and at this point, it'd be too late for the trough to pick up the storm and throw it out to sea, and that's why you see the GFS 18Z run bring this a little bit closer to land. And now, if this continues to stay as a trend, that's definitely going to pose a risk to, I would say, the entire East Coast, all right? Because obviously the track of the storm will vary, it'll definitely change. But that's why it's such a dangerous storm for the eastern United States, because you have a big area of high pressure that's going to try and block it from going out to sea. And it also depends on where this trough is going to be, because definitely it's a possibility that the trough is a little bit farther farther to the east, and that's definitely going to be one of the better case scenarios, because that could definitely give it the ability to pick it up and throw it out to sea. But that's not the case with the storm, and this high pressure is just weak enough for this storm to scoot just past the eastern United States and kind of impact Nova Scotia instead. Obviously, I don't want you guys to get hit either. It's just lucky that on the GFS it doesn't have the eastern United States getting hit. All right, so this is subject to change. We need to watch this. We need to pay attention closely to specifically the 500 millibar height anomalies, because we need to see where that ridging is going to be and where that trough is going to be to pick up the storm. So what the European model has for this is that it has the same kind of general idea where you get this trough that's going to start bringing it farther north. But what happens to at least potentially throw this out to sea? Well, you get yet again pretty much the same exact story. You get a little bit of area of high pressure that's going to block Atlantic Canada, and then you get this trough that's too late to pick up the storm, and that's why there's a very high chance that this could definitely be pushed into the northeastern United States. So, I mean, you can say specifically that even maybe the northern half of the East Coast needs to be aware, because all of the GFS and European ensemble runs, and even just the European and GFS regular model runs, all of them agree that nobody out here is going to get hit. All right, things have completely changed since what we saw yesterday and early this morning. Between then and now, things have really significantly changed. So I think the Northeast at this point, if things don't change from here significantly, which I doubt that's going to be the case, but if that was, excuse me about my phone, but if that's the case, then I think we can say the Northeast is at a greater risk of being hit by this storm. So that's all I got for you guys. Thank you all for coming to watch. I'll see you guys in the next video. So, stay tuned. We'll continue to pump out updates for this storm. We're going to be talking about the storm for a long time. So, this is very likely to become Tropical Storm Ernesto, probably going to become a hurricane. We're just going to continue to have to watch what model guidance shows. Hopefully the Canadian model somehow becomes the right one. And so we're just hoping that this is going to, stay weak and it's going to stay offshore. It's going to just be a fish storm. But, even if it doesn't end up impacting land, obviously I'll keep you guys covered. But very dangerous storm. Don't freak out about it yet, because it's still way too far out to really say anything about potential impacts to the eastern United States. Really can't say that at all. So once again, please just don't freak out, don't be scared, be prepared, and I'll see you guys in the next video.